Hello and welcome. This is Gabrielle Celeste of Agua Astrology, and you are here listening to a video. I don't yet know what I'm going to name, but we are going to be talking about how to recognize when an idea and a business idea or a creative idea is trying to come to you and is trying to or wants to be birthed through you. And I'm going to share how I went ahead and recognized that my business idea was trying to come to me and be birthed in the 3D world. So before we get into it, please subscribe, like, review, do all of the things, as I often say, as I build out this channel. All of that feedback really helps me, and I would greatly appreciate it. So let's get into it. So, how my business idea came to me. Again, I don't know what I'm going to name this, but it's going to be something along those lines. And really, I'm just kind of speaking to um, the process of how I pieced together that there was a business that wanted to live through me as the human vessel in this 3D realm that we know as planet Earth. And just recognizing the steps that were coming to me, the ideas that were coming to me, and what I did throughout, honestly, like a 3-year process to facilitate that. So, I did speak to a few of these details and just like a more detailed story of what was my Saturn return, which is a weird 3-year period. Typically, you feel it around age 27 to 30, where your life kind of just goes through a lot of ups and downs, changes, whether good or bad, because it's just a very karmic cycle and it's based on the planet Saturn, quite literally making its way back to the exact moment in time, sorry, in place, exact place that it was at the exact time and moment of your birth. So, I did talk about this in an episode with my sister, Nicole Christine. We co host a podcast together called the Spiritual Sisters Podcast, and I'll link that below. And you can get a little bit more of the insights into as to what that looked like and just what was going on behind the scenes. And I'll touch base on a little bit of it there, but this is more just going to be a shortened version of how my business idea came to me throughout that 3-year period. And quite literally, that was like when my life changed and all of my psychic gifts really came online. And I realized that a business idea was at the forefront and wanted my attention. So I'm going to start and go over this over a 3-year kind of just overview, brief, hopefully. And we'll go over the first year and I'll talk about just what I was doing that year, what I was studying and practicing, and just how it all kind of developed from that point forward, and the breadcrumbs that I essentially followed to build out my business. So I primarily started, I am an intuitive astrologer. I am a medium, a numerologist, tarot reader, and more. And I started with astrology, but I picked up, studied, learned, mastered all of those modalities. And there's always room for more and room to grow and to learn. But I am very comfortable with those modalities. And I practice those now within my business in some capacity. But my first love was truly astrology. And I got into astrology because I had a girlfriend who was studying Vedic astrology. I study Western astrology, a system I use Placidus. And she asked me one day, just like, if she could have my birth information so she could use it to practice. And to be perfectly honest, I never knew my birth time, even though in the States, there are some states that don't give you or provide you with birth information and they don't put that on birth certificates. But most of the states in the United States, which is where I'm at, do. And I never knew what my birth time was. So it prompted me to go look at my birth certificate and provide her with that information, which I would still do to this day, of course. And I think it was all very divinely orchestrated and led for her to be the vessel to kind of get me curious, even more curious about it, because I was always curious. My dad was always super into it. He's very intuitive himself. And I think it was kind of just that first breadcrumb that was placed in front of me to go ahead and start doing this work. But All this to say, like, I would still give her that information, but now being a professional astrologer, I wouldn't just freely give that out to anyone because that information, once you cast your birth chart, which you need a specific time, date, and place of birth, if people have that and they know how to read it and they have that information about you, they're going to know a lot about you in general. So I'm very wary and protective of who I choose to work with. But she had asked me for my birth information and I was like, sure. And so she gave me a mini reading and I just like wanted more from that point forward. She showed me my chart from a Vedic perspective. And it looks a little bit different than the Eastern and Western styles work. Like more so the Western charts, they look different than the chart that she's reading. But I had really just been very almost entranced with the whole methodology and the modality and everything that went into it. And I remember just like, okay, I need to get more of this. I was picking up and just wanted to be in that phase and was in that phase of just wanting more and more information about astrology. And I ended up listening to a podcast about, and this was towards the end of 2019, I would say, right before everything happened in 2020. And actually, might have even been 2020. It was one of those 2 years. It's been a couple years now since I've had my Saturn return, but it was one of those years where I was interested in listening to a year ahead episode of just what was predicted to happen in that upcoming year from an astrological standpoint. And I came across exactly that, which I think is so ironic because I'm just about to go ahead and start recording and prepping for literally a podcast episode that's going to focus on 2024 astrology. And I'm like, wow, like it's almost like a full circle. So I found a podcast by my teachers, The Spiritual Gaze, Gayz, and go follow them, like them, subscribe. They're great. But I found them and they were just about to start offering one of their upcoming astrological entry level courses. And I was like, wait, at that point, like I was literally consuming their stuff. I couldn't get enough of it. And that's one of the first signs that something is trying to come to you or is just trying to come and grab your attention. And that would be if you find yourself just consuming all of this information, if you're curious about it, if you found yourself coming back to just that idea, if it's somehow showing up either in the form of a sign, someone mentioning it to you in your life in some capacity, it probably is because it is trying to get your attention. And in some way, shape, or form, that specific topic is meant for you. And in this case, that was astrology for me. So I ended up signing up for their course, and that was like a 3-month program, I believe. And they ended up having such success with it that they ended up doing 2 additional courses, which I also studied with them as well. So in the midst of doing these courses with them and just really getting into the work and learning more about these modalities, I was picking up books, listening to podcasts, YouTubing every free second that I got, all of this free information and taking advantage of all the resources that were out there because I was being called to do the work essentially. So if you find yourself in some kind of rhythmic pattern like that, it's for a reason. And it's probably not by a coincidence. So paying attention to those signs is what I would say is how a business idea or an idea or a creative outlet of some sorts is trying to come to you. So I was doing whatever I could on my free time just out of curiosity, which I didn't know then. Obviously, what I know now is that an idea was trying to come to me. And I was just also I was getting readings with trusted readers because I've always been really particular about who I let into my energy and who has access to my energy. And I was also doing a lot of physical body work at the time. So I was getting a lot of acupuncture and massages because I'm pretty active myself. And now I'm like, oh, my guides, the universe, spirit was preparing me and my body to almost evolve and elevate and to bring it up in the physical form into an elevated form of vibration and consciousness in a way too. So that was all pretty much going on within that first year of my Saturn return. And I also, at this time, one of the modalities I got really curious about, but I was actually really fearful of, was the tarot. And the tarot and astrology actually go hand in hand from a numerical and a timing standpoint, as well as the history of what is spoken to in the mythology of astrology, as well as in the tarot. So they're all linked. And I was really hesitant to pick up just that particular modality because I was raised Catholic, and there's certain things that you are encouraged to and to not kind of wade into. And the tarot is not one of those things, even though there's a lot of uh, history referenced between the two, between the religion and between the modality. And so I ended up just kind of like, well, I just feel like I'm being called to work with this as well. And I ordered a deck, which is not how I would suggest to pick out a deck for yourself. And I'm going to do a separate video where I speak to the different tools that I use personally and how to pick them out. I would definitely go to a shop now in person, allow the deck to find you. But I ordered my deck on Amazon, and I would literally practice, and unbeknownst to me then, what I know now again is I was developing and strengthening my intuition, because with those daily card pulls, I eventually got to a point where I could predict what card was coming out and my interpretation of the card, which I later would like look up or Google for whatever area of life I was interested in with respect to the question that I was asking. And it was kind of just my intuition coming really online. And now I'm a professional reader, so I can confidently say that that was definitely like my early building blocks for me working with that modality. But it was just probably the modality that allowed me to gain a stronger sense of confidence with respect to intuitively reading energy, which I do without the tarot, but at the time with relying more heavily on a modality, which I would also encourage at first too. Like if you're interested in developing your intuition, I would definitely use like those tools and like those training wheels, I guess, to support your intuitive development. And I am super grateful for that because I still use it to this day. And I highly encourage that anyone and everyone in this realm learning about that particular system, because I don't say things are perfect, but that is almost like a nearly perfect modality when you look into the history, the system, how the numbers work, and how it's aligned with the zodiac. So that was pretty much my first year. And then in my second year, at that point, in my professional life, so background on me, I am an intuitive consultant for healers, and I have over 10 plus years of consulting in a corporate, private, and public industries, government industries, as well as a master's and all of that behind me. And now I realize like that was a skill set for me to bring that into this area of work. And in my second year of my Saturn return, I was coming up to a transition in my um, professional life where I didn't see it then, but the breadcrumbs were being led for me to leave that and to start my own thing. I had pieced together that astrology was something I was really passionate about, and they always say like if you're passionate about what you're doing, or about anything in general, that should be what you go into, so it doesn't feel like work if you ever decided to start a business. And for me, I knew it was astrology or something related to that, and I just didn't know how to get there, or it just felt like it was gonna be a lot of an intense energetic output and a commitment running your own thing. And it's honestly like a marriage, because you are married to your business, for the course of its lifespan, especially if you wanna, depending on how much energy you want to invest into the success of your business as well as the outcome. I think there was also for me, because your Saturn return is such a time of evolving and growing and just challenges for the better down the road, even though it doesn't feel like it in that period of time. I think there was a part of me that felt like I couldn't do my own thing, even though I was already working for a Fortune 500 company and helping them make multi-million dollars. So, and save multi-million dollars at that. So, there's something to be said for that. But I also feel like this area of work in general, spirituality is fairly new, and there weren't many examples to model. So a lot of what me and my wonderful, beautiful girlfriends are doing, it's very it's just a new space. So there are the pioneers. In my second year of my Saturn return, going into my third, one of those pioneers I did study with is Nikki Novo, and she is one of those pioneers that's like leading in this space. There aren't very many of them. And so we're grateful for the ones that do exist. And I just didn't have any examples to model off of. And I think that's like what was a limiting belief in my mind at the time. So I knew that I didn't want to stay at my job, and I was looking for a way out. And I knew what I wanted and was eventually going to need to um, build my business given how much time I had invested in my career at that point. And I was pretty burnt out at that point within my career. And I just was like, if I go into this, if I truly commit, like give me the signs, universe, which is what I got. So again, they like set me up, my guides, the universe, with the right people to work with to study under. And it just felt very aligned. So another takeaway is if it feels very aligned for you, and things are just working out seamlessly without you really having to not say, I don't want to say not having to try, because I definitely put forth the effort. I would say if things are coming and falling into place very easily, then it's probably because you're meant to go down that path. And that was very much that for me with respect to how my life worked out after I left my corporate job, because I ended up getting a full-time remote position, which has since then allowed me to flexibly work and build my business and still make an income and have the resources and needs I need for myself and my basic needs as a human, as well as investing and building my business as I go. So that was my second year. And in the second year, as well as going into the third, that was when the idea of the business also came in. So the first year is kind of like chaos. The second year, because that's also like the rule of three. Three is a very symbolic number. So like I forget, I don't know if this is like a Chinese theory or what, but one of my mentors had mentioned that. So like in the first year, you identify what the challenges are, you kind of study it. The second year, you put everything, the system into the place, you put your ideas, whatever's going to build that out. And then the third year, you kind of perfect it. And then after that, it's pretty much like set on its own. And my second year is when my business idea, my name came to me, and I perfected what I was looking to do from that point. I was building it up because aside from learning the charts and studying astrology, which you're going to study astrology for the entirety of your life, because there's so much information to know about it, and there's never going to be it's just not possible to know every single thing about it because of how long it's been around and the different interpretations which everyone has of it in general. And I knew that there was a missing component, and that missing component was learning how to read energy. So I sought out someone, or at least I put it out into the universe, given my manifesting styles and my human design, and eventually was aligned with one of my teachers who I adore and respect dearly, Nikki Novo. And I trained with her under her at the time called Soul Teacher Program. And I combine that now within my business to essentially serve my clients. So that was year two. And in year three, I went live with the business. I was like, all right, the business idea, like I've trained, I've studied enough. It's time to bring it and birth it officially in the world. I kind of kept it to myself and that idea, even though I was prepping myself and the people around me, like, hey, like I'm psychic, sharing that and identifying as that. Because another takeaway is the energy that you put out there and how you introduce yourself and how you show up, it's going to be mirrored back to you. And I now looking back, every time I was so unsure of how I was going to be perceived or what people thought about me, it was mirrored back. But since having owned it and truly identifying as an intuitive healer, an intuitive astrologer, the confidence that I put out there is mirrored back to me in the same manner. So I was definitely in that space for year 2, year 3, because by the time year 3 came out, it's like even if I'm uncomfortable by it, I'm putting this out there. And this business idea, the energy of this business, the spirit of this business has chosen me to live through me. And if I weren't to have built it out because it wants to be birthed on the 3D realm and from a shamanic perspective, and as I've said in other videos, it'll move on to someone who's going to build it out if you're not interested in doing so yourself. So, I also, once I started talking to people about this before in the year 3, this is during year 3, when I literally launched my business, people were also pursuing me and asking me for my astrological services because word had gotten around that I was about to start this business, and I was interested in building it out, but people were coming to me before I was officially ready to launch, or like was also in a moment of doubt if like, am I really going to do this? So year 2, year 3 transition. And because people were seeking me out and wanted to pay me for readings, I was like, okay, like this is definitely the sign, like it's go time, and like let's figure out some ideal dates to launch this officially. And that's what I ended up doing. So that was another just confirmation, as well as another breadcrumb that was how something was meant for me, given it's a creative idea, a business idea, and so forth. So I also wanted to just kind of end this with some quick points, and share that your Saturn return is just a weird time in general, and there's different ages where certain life challenges and changes are going to come. That's definitely one of them. So, in that period of time, I also learned I want to share that business ideas are going to come to you if you have the experience with the service, if that's what you're selling, or the product that you're selling. And from a spiritual sense, because you've gone through, say, inner child work, for example, you've done a lot of the work yourself, you can really speak to the healing because you were in the ringer healing that part of your life. You become a subject matter expert by way of experiencing those trials and tribulations and learning how to heal that. And you're thereby good at working with certain modalities that can help heal that respective area of life for yourself. And you can apply that for others. And that's one way of realizing like that specific business idea focused on inner child work, for example, is meant for you and for you to birth and build that out. And also, I also want to share that this work is a calling. And if you're being called to do this in some capacity or just feel very interested in a certain area, it's probably because your own business idea is trying to work its way to you and wants you to be the vessel that births that into the 3D realm. So I hope that was helpful. That's my takeaways. Again, please comment, provide feedback, subscribe. And if you guys have any ideas of what other videos or types of videos you would like to see, please go ahead and let me know. And I'd be more than happy to dive into that and record for you all. So thank you for being here.